Hey everybody, welcome to episode 162 of Tactical Crouch. Kick Tripod here with Yiska and Volamel. Post BlizzCon spectacular episode, celebration, moratorium, funeral. I don't know what this actually technically is as far as Overwatch 2 is concerned. But it's something, it's definitely, there's a lot to talk about. But before we do talk about all those things, you may notice that we are back on Twitch, and we kind of basically we spent a little bit of time. We spent, I think, 6 or 7, maybe even more episodes on YouTube trying it out, and there was a lot of good things about it. A lot of people really liked that we're on YouTube because they could use the YouTube Red subscription, download the videos, that kind of stuff, and they could like scrub through the live videos, and that was really nice. However, there were even more people who were like, I can never really tune in on there. I always forget. I don't get the notifications. There's some complications on our end as far as getting the show live there and switching back and forth between Twitch and YouTube. And so we decided that we're just going to go back to Twitch for now. Who knows? It might change in the future. I don't plan on it, though. I don't want to keep, snip, snap, snip, snap. I don't want to keep doing that to you. However, if you did subscribe on YouTube and would like a refund, please just DM me on Discord or on Twitter. On Twitter, it's @KickedTripod. On Discord, it's KickedTripod, hashtag 0001. My DMs are open. You can say, hey, I subbed, and then you guys aren't streaming there anymore. Please give me money back, and I will happily do so. But yeah, that's it. Hi guys. Hi
Hello.
guys. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
We're Vikings now.
Are we?
We're Vikings.
We were.
We are.
True.
Once a Viking,
Are.
always a Viking.
Oh, okay. It's like just get jumped in. You're
Yep.
just always a Viking.
We've been playing.
sick.
We played Valheim over this last week a little bit, and we didn't get very far. But Yiska did make sure to put all 3 of our beds right next to each other in the hut. So
Yeah.
Cuddle.
We did cuddle.
who was Yiska was middle, I think.
I was middle, so I had
Yep.
reach to both sides to comfort you, of
Yep.
course.
And I was up against the wall. So
The aisle seat.
Yep, sure did. Anyways, so good to see everybody. Obviously, this is an Overwatch podcast, and we're going to talk about Overwatch and BlizzCon.
There
later,
is a bit to
but,
talk about.
Before we do, big thank you to our patron producers: Refine Bean, Ferdino Pin, Battlecrab, Lolshin, Rex Zane, Audio Compass, Kasha67, Sharp, Picasso, Nathan, Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fabled Steven, Roger B.O., and Chris R34444. Horbjorn, and listen to this podcast whilst on the toilet and in the shower thinking of Yiska, Peace Camper, Anxiety Pokemon, Sir Girthalot, Bronzebot, Boohow, Evan, and Alex S. Thanks so much for supporting the show. If you want to support the show, there's 3 great, amazing ways to do it, and we appreciate every little bit of support we get. First, Patreon. Go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. You can sign up there. We've got different tiers of support from $1 to $25 with various rewards, I guess. What are they? Perks? With various perks for that, including access to our game nights. Joe's going to talk about our anime nights here in a second. And, we're doing more stuff with the community, and we'd love for you to be involved for that. So patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Otherwise, you can subscribe right here at twitch.tv/kickedtripod as well. You get a free Twitch Prime sub every month, so you can just use your Twitch Prime sub. It's free, and you're supporting the show. Or you can use a regular sub. There's various different tiers. The level 2 tier unlocks the Lord Joe emote, by the way. So you definitely probably want to check that out. And other than that, the third way is just to leave a 5-star iTunes review on iTunes. We really appreciate it. That's it. No more goofing around. Joe, let's talk about anime nights a little bit. So we're gonna do a little bit different thing with our patron and subs.
Yeah, so for the our kind of game nights, we want to not broaden out a little bit, but there's definitely a through line between a lot of the community members and a either recreational or like a pretty hobby driven love of anime and manga. So had the idea and got some positive feedback around it on kind of coming to a consensus agreement on watching a show, kind of starting it all together, talking about it, and then kind of doing Anime Survivor and then cutting it if it doesn't necessarily make the cut. So this Friday, tentatively, we've set up a group kind of get together to kind of talk about the first 5 episodes of The Promised Neverland, a show that I've definitely heard of and has been kind of all over the place and kind of interested to give it a try. We'll kind of all jump into his Discord and talk about it and see what we want to go from there. And it doesn't necessarily, the conversation doesn't all have to be focused around that show. It can be around whatever show we're watching, just a nice hang session, maybe play some games, maybe have some drinks, and just chill. So yeah, this Friday, Promised Neverland 1 through 5, and we'll see you there.
Are we gonna watch like the first 4 and then watch the 5th together and discuss it, or are we gonna just watch all 5?
We could if somebody wanted to. If we want to wait and just do 1 through 4, and then if somebody's nice enough want to stream 5,
I can.
Could do that.
I mean, I can do that. I'll be there.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
that's
sure.
if that sounds kind of more fun to do, I don't care.
Let's do it.
Let's try it.
Look, if you're a viewer that's currently listening to this, either live or on YouTube, and you're asking yourself what this all has to do with Overwatch, the Venn diagram of people liking Overwatch esports to the degree that they are watching us and liking anime is basically a circle. And those that are outside of it are probably watching this in order to get a quick buck off of the information that they can use in their bets. Also, if you're, I don't know, after this weekend, if you're not used to Overwatch not being mentioned in an overview or in a ceremony, or in the pre-show, I don't know. Like I feel like we're pretty thematically a Blizzard podcast now in that regard. We already said the name of the game, so that's already more than the ceremony did.
We've said it more times than they did, to be fair. That was kind of spicy, to be fair.
To be fair, did you know that games bring us together? Games
Lost Vikings,
are what
though.
bring us together today.
Blackthorn,
Just
anybody?
20 minutes of Blizzard nostalgia bullshit. And don't get me wrong, I got teary-eyed. I got emotional about it. It's very important.
Yeah.
But
Makes you feel?
I did find some of it disingenuous coming from a company that's let go of thousands of people over the last 18 months. Has shut down entire offices or kind of configured those. And the games are great, and I think the people behind the games are incredible, amazing people. The people running the social media channels, the people doing everything.
Yeah.
Even having to write this messaging for the I would say kind of like the C-level people who we're not even just the money grabbers, wherever those tentacles are coming from. There's the hydras, I guess. There's like
The old gods, just call them.
yeah. There's but man, it was like 20 minutes of it. It was 20 minutes
just
of it,
wish
and
that was a
every
lot.
game got a remake. And I'm like, I don't want to play any of these games. I just want to play Overwatch 2.
Also, like, let's be honest, like this was a pre-recorded thing almost entirely through, right?
Mhm.
So why is it that these lizard people always like JM Breck is like, oh, didn't see you there. What is going on, party people? Friends. Like
Fellow
this,
kids.
Like, come on, just have a human conversation. If you can't do that, you probably can try like for several hours in order to nail it. I don't know, like the weird tone of that just makes it so. I don't know. Just talk to us. Like, this is the age of authenticity. I think, for instance, the Overwatch League has learned this lesson the hard way and also excels at it now, where we're actually speaking the same language and people in charge are talking to us on eye level. Well,
I mean, let's they're not fluent, but we're communicating. We're having casual conversation.
Smoke signals.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like, this is just like, then I see like I don't know. I think the WoW stuff was a little awkward.
So long.
It was not that much content, and then it was just like she was talking about the and then the Draenei and which thing you chose. Like, dude, I had during that time in 4 years of life, I had 3 years played, and I still don't know what you're talking about. So probably nobody in the world cares what you're talking about. Like that, it's just so robot person. Like, I think brands need to develop towards authenticity more. And I think a lot of the disconnect that we felt, of course, as an Overwatch community, we will talk about that issue separately, but generally speaking, like, you wouldn't get that from a Mike Morhaime, like, or you wouldn't get that from a Jeff Kaplan, by the way.
Yeah.
Who was absently missing as a vice president of Blizzard Entertainment in these presentations. Now, of course, I understand that there's a messaging issue of putting Jeff on stage. I don't think too many people know that he's even the vice, and that like him appearing sort of signals Overwatch. Yeah. I understand, but this guy is like a lovable character that doesn't have to put on like. I understand it's awkward to talk like when you're like the guy that develops video games 364 days of the year, and then on this 365th day you're asked to host a stage in front of 40,000 people. I understand that you have an awkward interaction with them because that's not what you do in your day job, right? But if you're online, dude, just like sit down at a coffee table and have a chat with someone, or get people involved in who know how to facilitate organic talks. I think that was a big problem because I already feel so disconnected from the Blizzard brand now that everyone that made this brand big is gone. Like Mike Morhaime was the last bastion. Like your 30th anniversary was there to pick us up as people in an authentic way, and you tried, and I even genuinely feel that you really feel the friendship stuff that you talked about, and it's also true that Blizzard games have formed friendships to that point, and it is something you should be very proud of. It just needs to be communicated by people who, in a more organic way, in a less teleprompter way. That's my problem.
So I understand what you're saying. Have you watched any of the Apple keynotes since? You should go watch one because it was basically the same style. And I, for one, I don't expect somebody to, hop up on stage and freeball it with me about what's going on and what's changing in their games. Like, it's always been scripted and teleprompted. You have a crowd to react to a little bit, where if there's a laugh or there's an awkward moment, or you have Keanu Reeves on the stage and someone goes, "Oh, you're beautiful," like "you're beautiful," or whatever that whole thing was. Yeah. There's the opportunity for that moment, which obviously you don't have in a recorded setting.
Yeah.
But I just, and so like I don't think that the writing changed all that much of this year. I just feel that companies, and the only company that I've seen that I feel like they really know how to execute a keynote and still keep it kind of, I don't know, that it kind of keeps it like, oh yeah, this is the company, they're giving me the updates, and I'm invested in it, and it's not scripted, it's not PR'd over, doesn't feel disingenuous, is Apple. And Apple has done an amazing job on those. And you should, you don't have to watch the whole thing. Watch the first 15 minutes. And they've done a really good job. But I think a part of it wasn't necessarily how the information. It wasn't the information presented. It was how the information was presented.
Yeah.
And that is like I've done some like C-level writing in the past for these types of things. And where we always start with this is we have the C-level person write out their thoughts. And then we take as much of that as possible and be like, oh yeah, but we probably should include this part too, right? We should probably do this too. How would you say this? What would you want to say? And like speechwriters, that's how they do it. And to me, this felt like each game wrote some updates about their game. They gave it to a team of PR people who then wrote it into a script and then handed it to Jay Allen Brack. And I did not like that at all.
And they didn't.
It was also the
tailor
contrast, right?
What do you mean?
I mean, we started with people pouring like their genuine emotions about the Blizzard games that they had played for the last 30 years, like saying like, I met my wife here, or I met blah 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 here. And that is like everyone that has been in yes, that this is like, if you have played WoW, you know people that got together because of WoW.
Yeah, all the time. I know WoW babies.
Right. And and like that type of stuff is genuine. And then you cut and then you put these people on stage where it's like emotional bump against like
robots.
Professional seeming stuff. And I get it. Like, it's super hard. The thing is, like, sometimes I think like, okay, the world should look like this. But at the same time, like, let's say you record a genuine conversation. You know how often you would probably have to record it in order for a lawyer to say, oh yeah, the thing that you said there, oh yeah, we can't say that because like that's legally because of X, Y, Z down the line. Please don't.
I don't know.
Please just read. But I think that was yeah, maybe. That would have generally been preferable. Yeah.
I mean, like, did you both see the behind the scenes look at Overwatch? Like that, like little panel discussion. I think they did a good job. I still think it was a little mechanical and a little rigid, but I think that was much more preferred to the like monologue. And it wasn't like all of these speeches weren't tailored to an online broadcast. Like they were still doing the old BlizzCon, like, where are my alliance? Okay, the Horde. Awesome. And it's it's meant for a crowd, and like it's kind of endearing and like
like, you know what I missed most this year, BlizzCon, says Jay Allen Brack. Normally I'd come out here and I'd hear roaring Alliance and Horde, and we don't get to do that today, and that sucks.
I think he did something like this, but
let's talk about the relationships we built along the way. That long thing. Rather than like Alliance and Horde and like Venthyr and blah blah, like I'm not super into it. And I also switched from Venthyr to Riven, or from Venthyr to Ardenweald. So like,
do they expect loyalty in that way?
You know, I don't think so. But I think they've done it with like Covenant Sanctums in the past, or not Covenant. They did it with like class stuff. I think in the past when they did, I think it was Warlords or whatever.
Legion.
You know, like I don't know. I would prefer I've never been a for the Horde yell type stuff, so maybe that hit the nostalgic note for other people. It's like, hey, even though we're not together, we can still cheer in our bedrooms or our living rooms, and maybe that's effective. I personally would have found a much more like, you know, we don't really get to do this today, and that sucks.
That's like Lulshin brings up a cool point from last year where, yes, like everything was leaked last year. And by the way, everything was leaked this year as well.
True.
But
if you look.
Like last year, like Jeff Kaplan just went out and said, like, this would be a lot more fun if it wasn't all leaked. And that's a genuine moment, right? Like, no matter what you think about that interaction, that's someone like just like, that must suck. Everyone understands that must suck. You want to surprise an audience. You work very hard for that. And someone that has invested like a minuscule amount of that effort just takes your bang, right? That must feel like it sucks. And to then not hide that, like, I don't know. That's how you...
it makes you feel human.
loyalty.
And
Yeah.
there's no reason, like there's no coincidence on why I think people are enticed by Jeff Kaplan when he comes out and like speaks. At least he does a good job if he's faking it from the cuff, right?
Dude,
like off the top of his head.
Let me just say, since Friday, I've like binged Detroit Become Human, and I felt like I had a deja vu after like watching that ceremony and then going into Detroit Become Human before the androids turn into deviants, where they're just like, "Hello, Jeff, how is it going?" Like that's yes, like these people could be androids. Like,
and I need to make sure that we say this. It is a lot easier to criticize what was wrong with this than to turn around
100%.
and write this ourselves and be like, here's a more genuine script, you guys. Here's like I do have very specific feedback because I've done a lot of this before and I know how it's done successfully. But at the same time, like there's no amount of like forcing, it's just like you start on the job training at a new job and you have an icebreaker. Nobody wants to do that icebreaker.
Nope.
But it still technically works.
Yep.
Like icebreakers just empirically work.
yeah,
And in the same way here, you're putting people who aren't, number one, they probably aren't that great on stage, but, they put up really nice webcams for everybody. I'm sure they've got lights up there and everything to kind of, make everything as well produced as possible, which makes your home office even less home office and less like home and less like I can sit back and have a chat. I mean, I have all this stuff in here and it took a long time to make it feel like, this is where I hang out and chill. No, you have to try to have an organic conversation about a project that I think a lot of people are. I would be walking on eggshells around the Overwatch community if this is what I was bringing to them. I'd be terrified because a lot of people weren't. So, a lot of people were pissed about Overwatch 2 not being in the opening ceremonies at all, and I totally get it. But there were a lot of people, and I think wrongfully, who were upset about the level of content that we got and updates that we got from Overwatch 2 in the following panel. And that adds an extra degree of stress and, kind of worry. And I got to do this right for those presenters who, again, are not PR faces of games. They're not your PR social people. They're just lead developers.
So, like, I'll tell you straight up, yes, to a degree, I understand that somehow last year they had to announce that Overwatch 2 was coming because, like, they needed to justify, like, the delay of development on the live game.
Mm-hmm.
But Jesus Christ, would have felt better if they were able to present the status quo in the same manner that they did in 2019 now on this 30th anniversary. Now, also keep in mind, by the way, this is super important to understand. If you have to arrange development cycles 5 to 10 years down the line, right? So if I in 2015 say let's make a game, or probably 2013, and I say the game is coming out in 2021 when my 30th anniversary hits, and we're trying to all coincide this, and then a pandemic happens that not only throws off your development, but also moves the date of your con to the year where you're actually turning 30, in the month that you're actually turning 30, but then your content is not ready yet, and it should have been represented at BlizzCon 2021 in November, then that's very different, right? I think, like, whatever we saw this year, and it was, let's be honest, for BlizzCon, it was a relative nothing burger across all games. But that's not the measurement stick that we should be using. If a BlizzCon happens in November, I don't think it's known yet, that's when we should expect, for this 30th anniversary, there to be the big announcements of all kinds, like Diablo 4 release date, Overwatch 2 release date, new IP was sort of intimated in those talks, I think. like all the other games. Maybe we're getting a new expansion for WoW announced at that time. Like, what are the other IPs? What am I missing? Like, whatever it is, right?
Hearthstone,
But
Heroes, I
that's-
guess.
Like in 2014, someone said, let's do something special for, or 2015 or whatever, and for 2021 when we turn 30. And then the pandemic happens. You cannot realistically expect, even though this is your anniversary BlizzCon, you can't expect anniversary BlizzCon content. I think that's very important to realize.
I agree.
Sure. Sure.
We
It
got-
feels like this year, like decisions. John and I were definitely talking before the show, and it feels like there were just so many decisions made, and it felt like a lot of them just missed the mark. Obviously, like choosing to kind of omit Overwatch from the opening ceremony, a decision that they probably had to take pretty heavily. Chose not to. I think was a mistake. I won't speak for John, but I feel like he probably feels the same. Again, like not tailoring the broadcast to being online and still kind of writing it like it's a in arena with a crowd, having those like call back moments to the crowd so that they can feel like involved. Maybe it, to John's point, like maybe it feels kind of home and maybe it feels kind of normal, and maybe that's what they were going for. Maybe that hit the note for some people. But I don't see why you couldn't have somebody like Zoe, or I think Michelle Morrow has been with Blizzard and worked with them in the past, like sitting her down with some of these developers and just having them talk and filming that and taking bits and pieces of that and then putting that out. I feel like that would have definitely gotten a little bit more charisma so that it didn't feel so robotic and monologue-y and so boring, because a lot of these notes, especially with like the WoW Burning Crusade, and like I enjoyed like the Shadowlands little cinematic. I thought that was cool, but a lot of this was just too long, didn't really care.
It wasn't an hour's worth of content. It's like, hey, opening ceremony's an hour, so we have to put together an hour's worth of content. Let's jam 20 minutes of nostalgia and then 40 minutes of game updates. And this is something that could have been shorter. It could have been, you aren't waiting for people to walk back and forth on and off stage. You aren't waiting for the lights to come down before you start a cinematic. And bear in mind, we didn't have a single, and this is, I think, the first time I've ever seen it. We did not have a single,
like fully rendered
full rendered cinematic this year. We had
these have all been like in-game
engine ones were all, even the Rogue one, which a
was
lot of
cool.
people thought, and it was still really good.
Yeah.
But like that's an in-game cinematic. It's not one of their like not traditional, but like one of their really special, fully out of game rendered cinematics.
It did feel like, to Yitzka's point, it did feel like they were holding their cards. They're like, okay, we'll see what this year looks like, but we're not playing everything. We're kind of holding back, and it felt that way. Past like the non-tailored broadcast, past our bias towards Overwatch, it felt very like tight to the chest. Like, we have stuff, we're gonna show you what we can, but once we get back into a sense of normal, that's when we'll start to lay out the bombs. Maybe that's a Blizzard bias. Again, I grew up on these games, so maybe the fanboy in me is hoping that there's a little bit more in store, but that's the feeling I got.
I would I think so. Twitch has tried to have like 2 TwitchCons since the pandemic began, and they've both royally sucked. It's like, this could have been an email for everybody out working from home right now. I was like, this should have just been an email. This didn't feel like it needed to be an email. I totally think that it was worth calling it
for sure.
Online.
Yeah.
I totally I think they really put a lot of effort into making it feel like a BlizzCon, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the challenge. I think that they could have done the entire opening ceremony in 40 minutes.
Yep.
I think that would have felt like it was a lot more packed with information, and rather than, again, like having to have every game lead came up with, a 6-7 minute monologue, which doesn't sound like a long time until you're listening to it. A 6-7 minute monologue about how their game is so
milked
great
it.
and how they,
Yeah.
whatever, and Venthyr and Maldraxian
Yeah.
and, all blah, 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 blah. Like, we don't need that type of, it's not them grandstanding, but that type of like, look at our game, look at all this stuff. Everybody in the room is in and excited. It's like, we're all at home,
Mhm.
we're watching, we want to see updates about the game. We know you've been working hard during a pandemic. We know development has been tough. We don't have expectations that I think are unrealistic. So don't try to fill an hour. Just don't try to fill an hour.
By the way, do you ever like? I just got hit by the algorithmic universe, just like reeling me in, going like, "Boy, have you like take a little look on the left monitor and just see what just popped up on your feed?" And I saw that person posting it, and I was like, "Oh, that guy has usually pretty good takes." So here's the quote. It is, of course, much easier to complain about how things are bad rather than do anything about it, which is why people prefer to complain. 100th the satisfaction, but 1 trillionth the effort. Plus, when someone eventually fixes the problem, you can pat yourself on the back for having brought up the attention to it. You can even complain about multiple things in the time it would have taken to fix one. And
True.
It's just like, why are you gonna hit me like this, dude? Like, I'm a journalist. I don't make anything. Like, I'll just complain all day. No, of course. But yeah, I think that's a good understanding to realize that it's a lot easier to talk about than actually deliver the product. It's more like a friendly. I think this would do
Be better
with
if,
yeah.
I think that the discussion's been, I think, fairly thoughtful and honest. And there is definitely some pros to these cons that we will get to. This is not all doom and gloom.
Pros to these BlizzCons.
You know how many like line jokes were made throughout this past weekend? Like, hey, but there's not a line at Blizz. Okay, so now 2CP's gone, guys. How about that, huh? Yeah, we love that.
No,
That's great.
Yeah, bathroom lines are short.
Yeah. Dude, those bathroom lines are crazy. Like,
yeah,
overly so. Like that and like the beer line. The beer line is long. Do not go to a drink cart. Go to the random.
Can I ask? Because at every I'm fortunate enough to live very close to Gamescom. Yeah. So I've gone twice or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every time I would have liked to have either like applied a face mask to myself or plugged my nose with candle wax or whatever. Is it smelly?
It can be. It can be a little sweaty in like packed areas. Like if you're, so the way that they do, again, from memory, the way that they do some of the demos is they snake a line. So it's not just like a line, it just kind of like curves in itself. So like you can be kind of around a lot of people. And yeah, it can get a little, it's usually pretty cold in there. So either people are bundling up and they get a little sweaty, or they're just sweaty people. But most of the time it's pretty fine. Just a lot of walking, kind of just big and flat. Not like too many places to like sit, I guess would be one of my complaints. But that, and obviously the overpriced like old beverages man. And yeah, really. I just want to sit and have coffee. Like that's about it. Like I get up at 5 a.m. after sleeping for about 2 hours. I'm just like, I just want to eat my like McDonald's breakfast and like have coffee with friends. Like if we could just all go to Denny's and like call it a day and like have a nap, like I'd be pretty cool with that. That's like the only thing I miss about like BlizzCon. Other than that,
you miss the naps.
Definitely not naps had, but I wish there was designated time for a nap at BlizzCon. But there's definitely too many people to see, too many drinks, too many beats to hit, too many demos you want to play. Just shit to do. So no naps. I wish there was naps. So naps would be nice. Yeah, I would have one after the show.
Yeah, but we did get. Here's the thing, and the last thing I'll say.
Such a grandpa.
Is we did get it. I feel like we got enough content to warrant like an update in the opening ceremony.
I think the reason why they didn't do that is because so much is up in the air. You don't want to necessarily like. There's
2
a
new
lot
maps?
of content.
That's not up in the air. You think the maps are up in the air?
Yeah, no, that's true. But would that feel
Sojourn's not
like?
up in the air.
I think yes. That's. I think you could have presented Sojourn. I'm not sure how far along she is, even though like showing like first person footage is already teetering the line of pretty serious. So yeah, I guess these two things could have been shown.
I feel like they could have taken that 45-minute panel, broke it down into like a 5-minute kind of like really kind of fast updates. Like, you know what? We don't have a ton to show you right now, but here's the cool stuff we've been working on. 2 new maps. Sojourner's coming along great. We're looking at a railgun for this, and we're really excited. We're not, saying no to anything for this rewrite. We maybe didn't launch Overwatch 1 the right way the first time because of everything that came before it with Titan and timelines and all that kind of stuff. So Overwatch 2 needs to be launched right. We're going to the gun ranges. We're reconsidering 2CP and other game modes.
They're
Nothing is off the
passives now.
table.
Whoa.
Yeah, like look at the talent trees. Look how far they've come.
Double fire strike, cancelable charge.
That like 5-minute just rapid fire of like, here's everything we've been doing. Now come to the 45-minute
Yes.
panel where we drag it out. I think would have played super well. And it's like, you know what? We didn't get a cinematic. There's not, there's no release date. They've done a lot of work for it. And instead, if you didn't go and watch the panel, it may have felt to you that there's nothing new or updating on Overwatch 2. What has the team been up to? Why don't we have a release date? What the hell is going on? And I don't know. I'm just like that warranted 5 minutes to me, a 5-minute quick cut, go for it type of thing. And then just like, we know you want a release date. We know you want cinematics. We know you want more content. Right now, we are fully just focused on launching Overwatch 2 right. And we are just as impatient as you are to get it into your hands.
Yep, I agree. Like I position myself, somebody kind of planted this in my head. Position yourself at BlizzCon. You go into the arena, at least for me, and I really resonated with this. You go for opening ceremonies, you watch that, and that's when all the big announcements are had. That's when like the peak viewership is had. The fact that your game is not announced at like the biggest stage, opening ceremony is probably the biggest thing. Like again, for the majority of people, if you have, you personally have something that you kind of want to watch more, that's okay. But I think I feel safe in saying that the majority of people are there for opening ceremonies and then they go about their business. The fact that Overwatch was not mentioned, or at least not even pointed towards like where you could find more information, did fall a little flat. And I think that if I was at the arena, at the Anaheim Convention Center, it was not mentioned, I would have not gone to the behind the scenes panel. Would have not happened. I would have left with a very sour taste in my mouth. Why weren't we mentioned? Like what's happening? Why is this going this way? Is it getting delayed? I don't know. Maybe that's different because it's online. It was very bizarre. I did come up like, I was thankful that the behind the scenes panel existed. I think more people probably should have been pointed that direction though. With like what John's saying, like a 5-minute little like, hey. And somebody kind of compared it to like a Nintendo, or they would have rather had it like a Nintendo Direct, where like a developer comes out like, hey, this is our quick update for this game that you've been waiting for. It's not ready. We promise we're working. Here's a quick little teaser. Okay, bye. Like, that's enough. Point them in the direction of the panel if they want to hear about it more.
Yep.
On to StarCraft. Keep the show moving. It just needs to be, I think mentioning the show at least and giving it like just a tiny sliver of time would have done better than just like not mentioning it at all and being like sweeping it under the rug casually. And again, I think that your Twitter feed during the opening ceremonies, once it ended, we were just like,
what's going on?
Where's Overwatch? Like no road
crazy.
signs. It was very, very bizarre.
Twitter was crazy. Yeah.
Again, these are the cons. There are pros from that behind the scenes talk that are very eye-opening and surprising, frankly. I think I left from that and the subsequent like discussion and talk around some of the changes that you're interested in making, like kind of pleasantly surprised at how much they're open to tinkering with this game.
Yeah,
and not in a bad way anymore. It's not like there are fundamental changes, but I think there's a lot more positive to these than just like, we don't know, guys, try this.
I really feel like if like you could un-PR Jeff Kaplan, because this would never get approved by PR, but I feel like Jeff would just go, Overwatch 1 was an incredible game, but it wasn't ready. And we were ready,
love.
And we didn't launch it correctly. Overwatch 2.
What I wouldn't pay.
Overwatch 2, we're going to do it right this time. We have the time. We have a game right now live that people still really love to play. We have a healthy esports scene. We're just gonna do it right, because at the end of the day, we know what, launching a game that maybe could have been better feels like, and we don't do that very often at Blizzard, and so we're really committed to that. But again, PR would never approve that in a million years. But I think the point stands of, like I didn't get that from the opening ceremony because it wasn't even mentioned at all. It just felt like they were trying to like sweep under the rug and just be like, like a pocket sand. And then they're like trying to like, don't look over here. Don't look over here. And thankfully I care enough about Overwatch to watch the panel.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, a lot of great stuff. And they're like going way more into this than I had expected, but I had hoped. And so, yeah.
Okay, can you explain that for me? Because that was a weird notion that I saw often repeated about the seriousness of where Overwatch 2 is going. Where people felt BlizzCon 2019 didn't communicate the depth of the vision for Overwatch 2 to them. And I didn't feel like I learned anything new about depth. So can you guys explain that to me, why you felt that?
I don't know if I necessarily understand the feeling, but I when you pointed out, I definitely I think I kind of can wrap my head around it. I think in 2019 they were caught up in like the shiny new toy, like, hey, we're gonna do a sequel. This is what we're gonna do. This is how it's gonna be implemented. This is what we kind of want to do. Like, it was kind of more of an announcement around the novelty, not necessarily talking about like how much they were going to repurpose, fix, restructure, change, alter, fixing the map pool, adding maps, adding heroes. It was a lot all at once. And I think the vision kind of gets glossed over. There's not enough time for them to go like, hey, we're going to plan on redoing all of the audio. This is what it's going to sound like. We haven't even done it yet, but I think what really drove that home is that audio segment where they're like, look, this is us in the field. We're testing all these guns, and like there's multiple different, audio kind of cues for where you are in the map and how they sound, and really kind of getting granular with it. 2019 lacked that because they were still trying to announce it. Like they were trying to like buy people in. Now that they've been bought in, they can kind of go into those really nitty gritty, like, this is what we really want to do. Hopefully we can get some more of this in there. Hopefully we can talk to you guys more. We can really start to drive home at that. And I think that's maybe where that feeling comes from.
I think also like the demo was so basic last BlizzCon that
it was basic. Like, again, like if this is where we're not even looking at a 2021 release, we're looking maybe even later than 2022. Like,
can we talk about this? How weird this is that in 2019 you have a playable demo with like pro players there and like streamers, and 2021
it's weird messaging.
You don't even have it on your ceremony like that. That just screams to me 2019 was a pure business decision that forced out the
or it was a mistake, or they just.
I have two theories on this. So I want to add something to your original question. So first, I feel like people left BlizzCon 2019 feeling like Overwatch 2 was a ported update with PvE, in the sense that We're going to update some of the on-screen graphics a little bit. We're going to change some engines for better performances, and then we're adding a PvE mode. And it's very clear that I guess that's not technically wrong, but the level of depth definitely varies from, you can just, port that all over and then, be done, versus like, we're going to redesign every single asset and every single thing. We've got this character from Overwatch 1 that we can kind of bring over and then, do whatever changes we need to for Overwatch 2, but we're not building him from scratch. But next to that, this is largely a game that we're building from scratch. And I think that was actually much more communicated this year than it was in 2019. And maybe it was, they tried to communicate that and it just came across as PR speak, or tinfoil hat on. They started going down the route of Overwatch 2 and realized how much they wanted to do, or how much they could do, or how much better they felt that they could make the game if they took a step back and did it right. And that's totally tinfoil hat. I don't know because that feels like a Mike Morhaime type of decision, right? Where it's just like, you know what, guys, like, just chill out and take your time and get this right, because this needs to be an IP that we put alongside StarCraft, Warcraft, and Diablo. And right now, Overwatch 1, while amazing in so many different ways, isn't that, and we need to get it there. But then it's kind of weird to be also like, for him to also be like, okay, now peace out. And so at the same time, if this is the type of leadership that, Jeff Kaplan gets to do because he's because he's vice president now, that's great. Or I find least likely if J. Allen Brack is the one who goes, you know what, there's still some Blizzard DNA here, and we need to launch this right. I don't know who ultimately is making that decision, but that's my tinfoil hat conspiracy about how I think it happens. Is they got this playable demo of something that's like, we need to revive Overwatch, and we need to do it in a way that makes that makes sense. Destiny did it. Let's do it. And then somebody at some point said, hold on, let's not over prioritize this short-term look without looking at the long-term. We don't want to have Overwatch 3 in 2024.
Yep. I think I agree on a lot of those beats. I think they didn't get the feedback they wanted. And I think that helped them sell this to the executives, be like, look, this is what we expected. This is kind of what we got in terms of player feedback, in terms of actual people interested, in terms of, the community response. This is what people are tangibly like really saying about what they saw with this demo. Let us do it right. I think in a weird way, it was again, tinfoil hat. I think it was a good thing that the demo came out when it did, as it did. And it was so kind of milk toast about it. Like, it was just it was kind of what we hoped it wouldn't be, where it was just like this on rails, super linear, just like, hey, go to the end and maybe shoot some bad guys, I guess. Like, people were like, yeah, it's cool. Like, I like the update. Like, it seems kind of fun. I'm interested to see where they go.
It's an improvement, but
it's also, really nothing changed. Like, it was Lucio and it was Reinhardt. Like, it didn't feel different. It just felt like a skin update.
Yeah, a skin update. And then they put you in a bunch of kind of cement rooms to go from thing to thing to, fight waves of Omnics.
If that was used to go like, look, if you want us to do this in a year, a la Call of Duty Activision, this is what you're going to get. And this is what people had to say about it. If we want to do it right, we have to move the date way back here. And I genuinely feel like internally they had to move the date. I don't think you come out with a playable demo like that. I don't think you come out and really start to talk about these things if you weren't ready to release this year. And I think they internally pushed it back. That's my conspiracy. That's my speculation. But I think this is definitely delayed internally. And that's why it is being handled the way it is. It feels like a step back, to Yiska's point earlier, talking about like the opening ceremony and what that, messaging was like. It did feel like a step back from 2019. You go from a demo and announcing, and you expect a release date sometime soon, and to not being mentioned, to being kind of, stowed away back on a panel. And it looks good, a lot more. Again, that vision was very clear, but yeah, just very, very strange. And again, hopefully they do it right. Hopefully this isn't Cyberpunk. And I think I think we were probably very close to being Cyberpunk this year. We would have been Cyberpunked. Ashton Kutcher would have come out and be like, hey, you know, just the typical
Ashton
nods.
Kutcher?
Punked.
Oh.
Hey.
With the old memes.
We got there.
Memes.
We got there.
When did that show go off air?
I don't know, 1990 something.
Punked. To be punked. This kid just make a 2000 reference. Let's see.
I mean, come on.
It's pretty old. Well,
It
they
is
had
old.
he did
Did
a
they
Super
reboot
Bowl
it or try to reboot it?
commercial this year. Ashton Kutcher is the first time I've seen him in anything. He's been doing great
He's
stuff
an
with
investment,
trafficking, though. No, he does. He's
Yeah.
like, I think he's doing a ton of stuff with like human trafficking. He's like,
Yeah, he's a big like humanitarian. He's got like other investments. I think he has like a alcohol brand or something. Or I don't know.
Wasn't he for a while like in the Shark Tank?
Hell if I know.
I don't think so.
Not the ones
So-
that I've seen.
Someone fill me in here if I'm wrong.
I think you're wrong.
I think so too, but I
Yeah,
mean,
don't think
okay.
have any
I
idea.
don't want to derail too much because I know we're definitely going a little short on time. I want to be a little positive about the announcements.
No.
I want to. The railgun looks cool. Sojourn, guys, looks pretty nifty. I want to play. I hope
Everything
that
about
comes
the
out.
game looked great. There's
Yeah.
not a single thing I didn't like about what I heard about Overwatch 2.
Oh, you will hate my take.
It's more about the stuff I
Really?
didn't hear.
Yes, agreed. Like I would have liked to have more, but I'm okay with waiting. You've definitely enticed me in ways I didn't know I was enticable. So let's hear your take before we get super positive.
Nah, you guys gotta go first.
Okay, I guess we're gonna end
Yeah,
on-
we
fighting
can't just
Iska.
talk about Overwatch 2 and me just going, nah, bruh.
So-
doesn't.
I first kind of had my eye or my ears, peaked when they kind of teased or revisited like the talent system. If you're going to make it like a WoW, like a mid 2000s, like Wrath era, like WoW talent tree, you have to give, as long, not that you have to, but as long as you give players like a progression system in that way and an actual like fun battleground to kind of like go around and like do all these like weird hero missions and whatever it's going to be, as long as the PvE isn't really just like stale, I think that will be a like gigantic hit with a lot of people, including myself. Like I would love to like party up with even just people in our community, you guys, and just go and like do like a hard mission and like really kind of min max the talents. And like I can see myself doing that and like genuinely enjoying it. I think Overwatch is fun to play, but when it comes to the PvP side of things, it is very frustrating. It is very annoying. But when it comes to PvE, that goes at least mildly to the wayside, or it could. So I saw like a little bit more there that I think built that that area up for Overwatch, for me at least. I think that could be a successful push for a lot of people to get back into this game. Then you had, if I'm remembering the run of show right, then you had like the announcements of like Reinhardt's like rework in a way. And I thought that was really eye-opening. I'm like, wow, I didn't expect that from Overwatch 2 because this was supposed to be just this reskinned PvE, blah, blah, blah. It again kind of doubled down on that vision. It opened my eyes to what else they could do. What other reworks are they kind of teasing? They talked about like the role updates. They really didn't, to use a Yiskaism, it was very much a nothing burger, but I don't think it was mentioned for no reason. I think there probably will be role updates for some of these heroes. Again, obviously Roadhog being probably the biggest target in people's minds to go like, well, is he a tank? How do we envision him as a tank? What are we going to do with him? The passives were interesting. I think that has been something that I won't say that I've been on the soapbox for, but I think giving people a little bit of customization, and to be fair, what they showed was not necessarily customization, but I think you can take this and make it a little bit customizable when it comes to PvP, a la like a League of Legends rune system, and having that pushed to the PvP side of things would give people a little bit more, or give them different ways to differentiate themselves to the others, and really kind of showcase the game a little bit more, if that makes sense. I was, the passives are interesting, the rework was interesting, the maps I could really care less about. They're pretty, but yeah, a lot of positives. I think Sojourn looks cool. I think our primary fairy looks sick. Like, seems very fun to play. I want more, but I was left with mildly surprised, but obviously like very, very cautiously optimistic. And I didn't think I was going to be. So that's my rant. Oh, and 2 CP's gone. So
I mean, I liked it. Like, there's nothing for me, honestly, that I didn't like about anything. It's not about the content, it's about the messaging. And companies still don't get that. And I think Blizzard right now doesn't get that. It's not about the content, it's about the messaging. There are people that we know who can, you could put Jeff up there and announce a nothing burger, and the community would largely still be really hyped about it, because Jeff, and I don't think he does it intentionally, is just a natural communicator now. I don't know what's happened since the Tiggle days to now, but he
was back then too.
I mean, he was, but I guess it was in a different way.
Channeled differently.
Some people are just, blessed with that type of communication style. Some people have to learn it over time. Some people, like myself, are just hopeless. That happens. But it was just the communication here. That's it. It's just, it's the messaging. It's not the content.
And speaking of communication, Jeff openly is, and again, till he does it, I'm taking this as lip service, has said that he wants to, he wants the team and the community to be a little bit more, connected, and their communication channels are definitely going to be increased.
Yes, more frequent.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Remember that one?
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. So, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and leave myself open to the possibility of it happening. If it doesn't, again, no expectations lost. It's how it's always been. But if it does happen, then it'll be a welcome change and something that I think the community kind of needs, especially the Overwatch side of things, because we aren't getting anything for a while, or at least not to our knowledge. So, yeah.
All right, Yiska, go ahead and
shoot us down.
Okay, so here we caveat. Let me caveat this, because what I'm about to say has nothing to do with objective facts about the universe. In essence, I'm really just communicating taste, right? And I think we don't do that enough. And in a way, like, there are underlying goals that we're all looking for, which manifest in taste or axioms or whatever you want to call them.
Sure.
But to communicate those, I think, is fruitful in order to have the other side understand why there might have been disappointment. That said, that doesn't imply that you did anything wrong, and I'm sure you actually served your the most amount of customers by doing what you did. Now, nothing what I saw about Overwatch 2 interested me in terms of wanting to buy the game. I actively
you won't have to. Free to play.
True.
I'm actually concerned that how different it is, right? We're getting such deep talent trees. We're getting very different scenarios, how characters play. I ran a poll on Twitter a while ago. What people expect would be the bigger thing for esports viewership. If it would be Overwatch PvP going free to play, or Overwatch 2 coming out. And I think Overwatch 2 coming out was 60% of those votes. Those 60% got to be high. If anything, like, as much as it will bring probably people to the table, there's definitely also something to be said about siphoning off people. I already see the possibility of an MDI type of tournament structure coming in. If people don't know what that is, it's like in World of Warcraft, There's now a
It's effectively
competition.
time trials.
It's time trials, basically running dungeons quicker than another team, split screen, and those get huge viewership. Actually, I think more than WoW PvP. Now, in Arena.
Yep.
Now, I don't think that it took away necessarily viewers. It also from Arena. It also didn't seem to have helped. So,
but they're not addressing WoW PvP by an Arena viewership thing to begin with. Overwatch is a multiplayer online game.
Yes,
at its
but,
core.
Yeah, but where do you see the
WoW
disconnect
is not.
between? How so?
It's very PvE centric. It's largely PvE centric, and the Arena community is,
And so
one of
will
the
Overwatch
small-
2 be.
Yeah, I think sure. I don't think I disagree.
I think we get becoming an afterthought, and the old WoW Arena player already sees a large issue in terms of divergence of the development time between the PvE and PvE sector, to the detriment of us even more than it is now.
Mhm.
I think
because
the push and pull
WoW
of
PvP is just fundamentally flawed.
I mean, that's a big discussion, but
Arena.
Sure, Arena.
Now, and are we talking about Battlegrounds or Arena?
I like Battlegrounds, but I think they're both really fundamentally flawed.
Well,
As a game
WoW
type.
Arena was at a time the biggest esports in the world.
I understand.
I mean, yeah, at a time.
At a time when
time
there
was
were
10 years
3
ago.
other esports. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It was
mean,
not the
there were pretty
biggest
big
game on the block.
Yeah, it
by
was
far.
1.6 Quake that during that time, right? 2009,
like,
2010.
They were pioneering a new genre in
And it
new
wasn't
type
an
of combat
amazing
system,
competitive experience. Yes.
and it wouldn't be nearly as big
know
if
which-
it launched today, even if there were no other MMOs.
You know which game also still is fundamentally flawed as a PvP experience? Overwatch.
Well, I think most games probably are. I mean, I think everybody has their flaws, but
I mean, fundamentally flawed in the sense that there's a very clear there's nothing that you can do without fundamentally changing WoW Arena to make it a successful esport again.
Oh, yes. And the same is true for Overwatch 1.
I agree.
And what are the likelihoods after what you've seen that this will come out
Change.
as such? Yeah.
To change enough of it. I think they're addressing enough of the underlying systems, and I think that there's enough that we still don't know about. You'll notice they never said, like, would you guys be open to talent trees in competitive PvP for Overwatch?
Jesus Christ, get me out of here. Nah.
Really? You don't think that gets some? You don't think you just like you build items in
Yeah,
League of Legends?
okay.
Like you
So,
don't have
like,
those
yeah,
type
yeah.
of.
Okay.
I'm
As
May and I
someone
build this
that
thing,
has-
and now I have 20% damage reduction because I got these stats over time. Like, you
Look,
don't think that
here's-
there's room for that?
Here's the one little voice that agrees with you, and that's the guy that has to find SEO guides to write so people click on them. Right?
sure. What are
Like
the best
the
channels
best-
for Tracer?
Trace that's
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Everything else about that, just nah. Just nah.
They're usually way more intrusive and like difficult to wrap your head around than they're worth. You can see League of Legends is very clear on that. Like they had a very literally a carbon copy print of what you're saying back in the day. Like it was this talent tree system and you would have different builds and whatnot. And they were like, people really don't get this. So we're just going to give them like little keywords to kind of click on. And that seems to work. And I think that would be something I would be interested in seeing when it comes to Overwatch, like little passive, well, not little, but like a
The
big
exact
passive and a little passive. you can
implementation is
pick.
not what's on trial
Sure.
here.
No, but I think one is a little bit more dangerous than the other.
I mean, we're just talking about ways to augment your character throughout a game via progression
Yes.
and stats.
That just law generally, I would agree with as long as it's not super intrusive, I suppose.
Like an inherently functional experience for an esports game
Mhm.
is likely like one of those symptoms of a game like that, or indicators, is probably that you don't need to change a thing in order for that to be still remain interesting for people to play, like CS:GO, like CS in general.
Sure.
We're so far away from an evergreen formula. And
I agree.
yes, we saw some progression towards like, I mean, I speculated some, like only
Yeah, I
one
saw
instance
that.
that we saw 2 tanks. I think Roadhog is probably the iffiest tank in that role anyway.
Mhm.
And then we never saw more than 5 people on a team at any given moment.
True.
That's an interesting change. So, or thought.
Speculative change.
Also,
yeah.
by the way, like, I'm definitely not saying that this is nailed, right? What I'm saying though is, if you look at how the signals are being sent from like distribution of characters to what the experimental cards were to the Kaneska, I still can't remember what it's called, but the 4-man
Kanezaka.
tournament thing, like that being for,
like they're
like,
interested in
I'm-
changing or
I'm
experimenting. with
very
this, yeah.
sure that they're at least playing with the idea of that being
100%.
being a thing, right? So that could help, but it's still a clutter, dude.
So okay,
Like-
let me try to synthesize so at least I understand, and maybe other people might be able to get
Like
at the
me,
heart of
because
what you're trying
I'm
to say.
lost.
I think I am too, but I'm not sure. So the point you're trying to make, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that nothing that we saw at the Overwatch 2 behind the scenes panel entices you to, in the way that nothing was shown that fixes like the core issues in making the format of Overwatch evergreen. You only saw like another bar added to that bar chart. So we had PvP, and we haven't, what you saw didn't refine the PvP bar. All you saw was the PvE bar get introduced and like get jumped. Does that kind of make sense, or is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, basically what I saw was we are in a nest. We just got out of our egg, like maybe a day before.
Yeah.
And then suddenly next to our egg, a bigger egg hatches and just goes, me. And it's like this bigger chick that now gets more of the food while we...
PvE content, by the way, is the
Yes.
bigger chick.
Yeah.
Yeah, while we get the scraps, and then eventually the PvE content kicks us out of the nest to a degree.
It kicks us out so that we can fly on our own. If this, to play within your metaphor, if we're allowed to be able to do, or if the Overwatch League brass is allowed to fiddle with the game, or not the game, but the format in their vision alone, because PvE has eclipsed them and isn't leading the ship anymore, then I think we could be thriving in the shadow.
Bro,
I think that's
there's one chance how this works. We get our ice frog through the workshop somehow.
Sure.
If that happens, yes, I agree.
Well,
We
it doesn't have to be
also
through workshop.
we could also try to just like splice an atom using our fingernails or something. Like, this is not going to happen anywhere else again.
So, I mean, I think I just fundamentally disagree. I don't think so. Number one, if it is as you say, and PvE is this bigger chick, and then Overwatch 2 or Overwatch esports gets neglected, that's Blizzard essentially giving up on esports. They don't have a singular esports title in their catalog.
Yeah.
Heroes is gone. And then the other
StarCraft,
ones are just
gone.
very like maintained.
Not
You know,
worth
you've
it.
got the Hearthstone Masters Tour. You've got Diablo leaderboards, I guess. Don't they have Arena or something too, or something weird like that? Nothing that you have MDI. It's very hobbyist. It's very, you know, and some people make livings with it, and that's great, but it's by no means what we would call, you know, a premier esport, a B esport, or even a C esport on most of those things. Overwatch is the only potential of doing that. Overwatch has, at this point, over $500 million invested into its infrastructure and Overwatch League.
How much of that force did you see thrown around and has actually actively changed the title at this point? How much do you think? Shouldn't that have already met it?
Well, I mean, I feel like that's a little unfair or yeah, unfair. I think a lot of that probably went to establishing, not necessarily refining. If I'm to understand your point, at least, Jessica.
So yes, number one, establishing. Number two, it's you. It takes a lot to leapfrog and kind of force an esport there. And I think that to build Overwatch as an esport, $500 million wasn't the most efficient way to do that, I don't think, but it was the fastest way to do that. And so, yes, I think that we are much further along because we spent $500 million up front to get Overwatch League to where it is.
Right.
But it's also a significant decade-long commitment to the esport overall, and something that we didn't see Blizzard do anywhere else. On top of that, revenue models for PvE are not nearly as lucrative for Overwatch and Overwatch 2 based on what we're seeing and what we're hearing versus the loot box model. And I don't think that you can sell loot boxes for PvE content as effectively as you can for PvP.
Would you be open to
Really?
seeing that thought changed in Overwatch 2? If they were to introduce something like a battle pass that's been pretty successful elsewhere, like, are you open to that thought being changed with the reboot of the game?
I just haven't seen it. I just don't think that
Sure,
you
of course.
can monetize PvE content as easily as you can PvP content. And I can't think of a single scenario in which that isn't the case.
The thing is, our PvP monetization. Like, do you think that's actually a successful model?
The loot box model
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's successful.
is successful, and I think that
In
I think it's
Overwatch?
too consumer friendly.
Yeah.
I think Activision will do what it does in finding a way to making getting less feel more fun.
Yeah.
As dumb as that sounds. Battle passes, rotating
Skin shops.
the potential for Overwatch League to be monetized, or Overwatch, competitive Overwatch, PvP Overwatch to be monetized, I think is exponential compared to where it is now.
Mhm.
I think that was also one of their biggest mistakes with Overwatch. It was their revenue model.
And I
Because
definitely
like it
think
or
that'll
not,
be changed.
the current Battle Pass microtransaction revenue model is a key driver to monthly active users. There are people
Right.
who log in to Rocket League every 48 hours to just see what's in the store.
What's in the
because
shop? Yeah.
am I gonna get the white version of the portal splooge so it looks like I'm splooging all over my opponents at the end of the game and stuff? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if splooge is a naughty
Algorithm
word.
gods,
I don't know
please.
if we've got to figure that out for explicit or not. But there's absolutely better ways to monetize Overwatch as an esport, and this comes from two ways, right? So as consumers, we want to spend the least as we can while having the most enjoyable experience, right? At the same time, we also want the game to be around here for a long time. And I don't know of very many people who wouldn't prefer a little bit more expensive cosmetic transaction model in Overwatch to give it longer health, more assets to develop and create.
Yep.
And
I think
PvE, I don't think does that. And you can't subsidize your PvE development with the stuff that you get from PvP if you are asserting that PvP is getting abandoned for PvE, because again, I have no idea, and I have yet to see a successful PvE model that isn't expansion based. Now you have to buy you have to buy new adventures or something like that, or heaven forbid, have to buy certain power ups to complete your content, which would be disgusting. So I think it's super unlikely, and so I think that the lifeblood revenue model for Overwatch comes from PvP, and that is why I think we're safe.
Do you think they could be tied? So it isn't just one or the other, but they could
I think
be
both can be
activity and
healthy.
Overwatch.
I think both can be healthy. I don't know, like tied, like 50-50 is kind of weird. Is it 55-45, 60-40? Is it the other way around?
Let me paint this picture then.
All right. Paint
If
me a
we're
word
under the
picture.
if we're under the assumption that Overwatch 2 is, you know, you have to purchase it to play the PvE content, but you can also, in this hypothetical, purchase a battle pass and just any activity within Overwatch, whether it be in workshop or in custom games or in matchmaking, comp queue, whatever, daily missions to add XP to your battle pass, whatever it is. If you play Overwatch, you increase your battle pass. That way it's tied and it isn't just PvP or PvE. It's just playing Overwatch. As long as you're playing Overwatch, you're progressing in the game, or you feel like you have a sense of progression. Is that something you think could be successful, or do you think it's specific?
You definitely tie progression. You don't want people to feel like they're not progressing their PvP side because they're playing PvE. In the same way, like, remember how no one played custom games because you wouldn't level up and you wouldn't get loot boxes, and you got a lot less for custom games so that people couldn't farm it,
right.
And they still try, but you have to have some sort of cross progression there. Yeah. But I don't think that's more about you being able to play the game how you want to play when you want to play it, and less about forcing more people into PvE or PvP.
Sure.
I also think that, like, the departure between the two games, they are very essentially not the same games.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a PvP player, you don't care about lore anymore. Anyway.
Sure. But what, I don't know.
What? Are you just saying PvP players don't care about the story?
Yeah.
Or the PvE? I mean, like, so the whole thing that Dota is doing with their whole animated series and stuff, they don't care about that.
The PvP players that care about the esports don't care about lore.
I tend to disagree with that.
I don't think we've been given a reason to be fair. There really hasn't been. To John's point, I think hear me out. I think people are willing to give something a chance if there's, like, if it seems fun and it seems like an interesting activity. Reading a forum post, what is effectively a forum post, isn't going to entice anybody. I don't think Blizzard has given people a reason from the competitive side of things to really care or even try to care. If there was an Overwatch TV show, I'd give it a try. I don't think I'd be a monthly user, but I'd give it a look.
So here's
another
Halo.
Oh, sorry.
Can I just use Halo as an example really quick?
Sure.
I don't know a single professional Halo player who didn't beat the campaign on Legendary. I don't know a single one. Not a single one. That's not that they care massively about the lore or blah blah blah, but it's just like,
but they were given a reason to.
You have so much time in that game. They're gonna play the PvE content at least once through. But it's not, that's very different than them caring about it. We have a lot of casual friends. You know, Joe just said, like, it'd be really fun, you know, to go with you guys and do a hard mission together and stuff.
Sure.
You know, you aren't having,
I don't know the story by heart,
Choyobin and Violet and Taya or whatever going in and doing that together, unless they're like doing it as a funny thing on stream. But that's also like the 0.1% of the competitive player base. If we're just talking about the competitive players, I know you in Overwatch League level and like contenders level, but there's a lot. I'm assuming that you meant it more broadly, as in, you know, anybody who considers competitive their primary form of, I guess, just gaming content.
I don't think any Halo player enjoyed, or like a vast majority of people play the campaign for the enjoyment of the story, but rather the execution of mechanics. That's the archetypical esports follower that I know. Just nobody, like, actually, really, legitimately, yes, I think Dota making a story out of this is, if that universe itself is not enticing and can stand on its own, I think the overlap will not be big. I also think the same for League of Legends. Also, yeah.
I don't see how you can just open up the show about the diagram of esports people and anime manga people being a circle and then being like, but they don't care about PvE, or they don't care about story.
Dude, I don't care about graphics. I don't care about story in my esports games, I would play stick figures playing against each other on angles
Sure.
if the mechanics were satisfying and were leading to a a satisfying experience. And I don't know any esports pros that don't think this. Like nobody from the pros that played like Junkertown or whatever said like, oh, it's so atmospheric. They looked at the leaderboard and wanted to be first. That's why people min-max play these things. Like esports people do not play for the enjoyment of the game. They play for the satisfaction of the game.
I just think I fundamentally
we're
disagree. I just think
We're
like I
building a whole lot of
fundamentally,
hills.
I feel like we're talking about different things and we're circling how to communicate it to each other.
How do games like Counter-Strike without lore succeed?
They're fun games to play.
Well, they're also kind of falling apart. I don't know if you've noticed. Not doing a whole great job of keeping that scene alive.
It's been in life for over 20 years.
Agreed, without competition, to be fair.
It's also
limited
not,
updates.
It's also not because Counter-Strike has no
competition,
story.
to be fair.
It's also not because Counter-Strike has no story, it's a better game.
Okay, here's why. Like, not only is story in the way of progression towards a better game, because you got to figure that out, but PvE is in the way of progression. If you believe that this game PvP needs 40 more characters, it has now been impossible to achieve this in the next 10 years.
Sure. Agreed.
Because not only do you need to come up with a lore, you need to come up with a full-blown 30-plus ability talent tree in order to launch new characters.
I mean, passive, not ability, but that's semantics.
Yeah, whatever.
I mean, I see what you're saying.
I think you're over exaggerating the amount of work and effort that actually takes.
I think that takes a lot of effort.
It's not like they just like put together a character and then throw it and there's just story teams waiting for them to put together that character before they decide what it's about and the lore's going. Those are being developed in tandem. It's like saying it's like saying longer. It's like so you're the guy who yells at the social media manager for not fixing the bugs. If companies just didn't have social media managers, bugs would get fixed faster in games. Social media is at odds with customer support. If it was so easy, why are we not getting any heroes until BlizzCon Overwatch 2 launch? Because it's an entirely different game.
Sorry?
Because it's an entirely different game.
And there's definitely marketing reasons. Like there isn't just one particular reason why this is.
It's an entirely different game. One is being neglected.
Why am I not renovating the apartment of the building that's getting demolished next week?
Oh, so you agree that PvE will hurt PvP?
For Overwatch 1, we are in a very different we're in a holding pattern here.
Sure.
I get
Doesn't
this,
need to be if it was so easy to implement characters.
Characters is not what is wrong with Overwatch 1.
It is 100%. The number one reason.
It's not the only. It's not enough to just throw a bunch of more characters there. Overwatch 1 is still not a good enough esport if you just throw new characters at it. It would help. It has systematic, fundamental things that need to be fixed.
I agree.
On top of additional characters.
I agree. And the best band-aid that exists that may as well be as powerful as the actual solution is frequent character launches.
However,
no doubt in my mind.
However, you have a hemorrhaging base right now. So we're going to PR here a second. Despite coming out with new heroes and characters for years, the player base has always been hemorrhaging for Overwatch. It has not corrected the curve. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So you have two choices. Continue to hemorrhage, but still keep up with that development cycle, slowing down your development, by the way, for what you believe is the fix to actually fix the trend. Or you cut it off, you put the assets into the new thing, and then you do what Destiny 2 did and go, boom, here it is, brand new game, everything. And it costs you in the short term. This next year is going to be brutal for Overwatch. Absolutely brutal. Everybody knows it. But the PR strategy here, the development strategy here is very clear and very obvious.
Yeah.
Nothing that we can do to Overwatch 1 is going to dictate the success for Overwatch 2. And so why worry about it now? Or why focus on this now and potentially slow down development or make less optimal choices in development for Overwatch 2? Because we are somehow so misreading the situation that we think that we can somehow save Overwatch 1 while developing Overwatch 2.
Okay, so I agree with everything you said in terms of the downward trajectory of the game and that we're hemorrhaging, right? So you start here, it goes down, it has been going down. We still have a solid player base. Not that that is a player base that cares. You cannot convince me that as many people are interested in Overwatch League as they were in Season 1. Just not the case, at least in our world, right?
No problem.
So here's the hijack. So your stuff goes down, more regular than initially planned. Like 4 is already ridiculously low. Hero announcements would have slowed down the curve, possibly kept it at an even level. And then here comes the magic formula. You increase the amount of heroes per year and make it free to play, and now it goes up. That's not your revenue model. No, for Overwatch 1 already. That's not your revenue model.
Overwatch 2 being developed.
Yeah, I don't care for the PvE portion of that. Yeah,
but it's more than just.
If you seriously thought that, sorry,
it's a whole new engine.
Sure, and there are issues that come with that. I'm sure.
Like you, I think you know pretty well the difficulties that they've had to work with this game.
But
like,
this is not the optimal solution to develop an esports league with $500 million investment. It just isn't.
Agreed. It's not. But for the future of this game, at least on this hill,
this is IP
this particular point.
This is pure IP protection from Blizzard, from how I'm looking at it. And if I was an investor in Overwatch League, I wouldn't be happy with the schedule that is coming out.
Maybe not happy right now, but I think if Overwatch returns to its pop culture like roots and becomes that big draw, I think they're over the moon.
And then we still have the worst, by far, the worst conversion of player base from casual to
but I think
esports viewership, and it solves absolutely nothing.
There's no disagreements for me there. I agree 100%. But right now, we don't even have a transition or a conversion to have because nobody's playing the game. So there needs to be a balance between the two. And yes, this conversation happens.
You realize that the reason nobody's playing the game is because in 2017 we decided to take whatever percentage of the developers and just abandon this.
I don't think that's necessarily predicated on the fact that all of that resources have been dedicated to PvE. And did that kind of slow it down? Yes, 100%. It definitely hampers it, but I don't think that's the de facto reason.
And you also
there's
realize
engine problems, there's marketing
that they
things.
pulled those developers in 2017 because somebody with more perfect data than us said that the long-term solution in health to Overwatch 1 is Overwatch 2, not more heroes, not more balance, not more heroes, not more balance,
IP
not
that
free
makes
to
perfect
play,
sense.
not a battle pass.
Yeah, I agree with the IP. It makes perfect sense. You want to protect this IP. It resonates well with the player base. It does not do that for the esport.
I don't think you want this to be a melee. I really don't think you do. And that's what it sounds like you're arguing.
What do you mean?
If you want this game to be a Super Smash Brothers melee, have no developer
I want this to be a League of Legends.
The IP to die.
Nope. I want this to be a League of Legends. I want this to be free to play, high amount of heroes. We might even have to buy them.
Okay, sure, that's fine, but that's not the game we have right now.
And that's not the game we're getting, and that's not the game that is going to save Overwatch esports as a whole.
The only thing that Overwatch esports. What is your expectation of the ceiling for Overwatch esports.
And a league with $500 million of investment should be the biggest
have
esport
that.
in the world.
Should be.
I mean, there's.
Did you expect?
So,
Did
the
you expect
biggest
that
by
to be-
viewership or the most profitable?
At the time it was put in.
What about profitability versus
I mean,
largest
we're
viewership?
not close there either.
I
Yeah,
Like,
understand.
profitability.
But
profitability.
successful
Okay,
esports leagues are very different. Apple has 12% of mobile devices worldwide, but they're the most
Right.
profitable like 8 times over.
Right.
This definition
The
of
definition.
success
Yeah.
needs to be
Right. I
needs
agree.
to be there.
Who cares about that other than the investor? Do you care about if one of your friends pays more per capita on the esport that they're going into? Nobody in the industry but the teams and the investors should care about that. I don't care
Should
about
care
that.
about
I
how
want
much
to share
money
with
a
more
league
people.
makes.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care how much money an IP
I mean, to an
makes.
extent,
I don't care how
I
much
don't
money
care if
my
they
players make.
I don't care about the difference
Don't
between
care.
20 million in profit and 500 million in profit. I care about the difference between negative 20 million in profit and 1 million in profit.
My enjoyment,
Because
I
if
think
it's
the
not
vast
profitable,
majority is-
I don't get to be a fan for very long, do I? So of course I care about that.
Remote
right.
to a degree.
As long as it's sustainable. I agree. That's the threshold. If it's sustainable, people actually get to make money, like players get to make a living wage that allows them to pursue like their careers afterwards.
Larger
then
prize
that's fine.
pools, better players, more competitive
don't care.
scene.
Don't care. No,
okay.
not
So
better
You don't
players.
care about
Definitely not.
larger prize pools so that we get better players playing our
There wouldn't be.
esport?
There wouldn't
You-
be. The
you
only
and
way
I-
to get better players is more players.
Agreed. I agree with you there. More
Nobody
player-
at 16 is enticed by money.
Agreed.
Nobody
Now-
that went into Fortnite went, I want to be in Fortnite because I can win 3 million.
But they didn't leave as quickly once they saw the multi-million-dollar prize pools.
I don't know about that. I
Yeah.
think there's a little bit more to that than I think you're giving credit. And we both know that there is something to status that entices people. There's something about the international that entices people. I don't need to be a Dota fan to go, wow, that's an attractive, that there you can angle that to be kind of an enticement. It might not necessarily entice you, but you and I both know if we were to write a profile piece on somebody's player salary, that people would click on that. Would you disagree?
Yeah, but where's the value?
It doesn't necessarily have to mean value, but to say that no, just because you don't care about it doesn't mean that nobody cares about it. You and I both know that that's not true.
Sure, but the most value surely is being able to have the most vibrant fandom that creates
I
the
agree.
most wide, like attracts the most wide-ranging content creators that
Sure.
the most of my friends will also be likely to follow. Everything
Agreed.
in numbers is like, from a consumer perspective, the more numbers in an esport, the better the esport.
I agree 100%. And I think that the audience right now for Overwatch, and I very clearly say Overwatch, not competitive Overwatch, for Overwatch is asking for something and they're getting it delivered to them. And I think that's fine. This is the
Nobody
game that
in
we
that-
have.
But who in Overwatch esports asks for
Again, nobody. That's why I said Overwatch. The fandom
Right.
to get that, create the content creator, to get that back to that our roots of only watch, to be that pop, to get people to want to play this game. You have to change so much, and that takes a lot of resources and takes
I
a lot
agree.
of time.
Irene?
Yes, I agree. A decision could have been made very early on in 2017 to go, okay, what are we going to do with this? Are we going to go the League of Legends route, like you're saying? Develop those heroes, and I think that would be successful, just not the road we're going. And I think that's fine to disagree, like
I don't see
axiomatically
why
at
it
that
has to
point.
be mutually exclusive. I don't see why you can't have a game with healthy PvE and healthy PvP. Not only healthy, but industry defining. Because most developers who are developing on a PvP game aren't the same ones who are writing storylines for so-and-so
but
through this.
Do you not think it's problematic that the same head developer for the PvE side is also the guy in charge for PvP? Because that's not the case in any other.
That's not the case in every case for Overwatch either. There's some bleed over and crossover, and I'm sure some of it just
Sure.
is has to do with limited
Right.
resources and you don't have revenue streams coming from these things to reinvest in that. So that's inevitable. That's inevitable. In the same way, some of the social media managers do it for the main accounts and the esports accounts. There's some bleed over there, and that's going to happen. But that doesn't mean that. And I know you're this purist in the sense of like, it means that there's less development for the only side I care about, because 20% of their effort goes into PvE. And I personally believe that 20% of effort in getting more people interested in Overwatch because it's PvE, to then play the PvP, to then become an esports fan, is there. It's a new funnel into building the thing that you love. And I think
if it was 0.2%, I would be very surprised.
Agree. Again, I think even just having
and that's
that
semantics,
ability,
right? We don't have that number.
100%. But even having that possibility of getting some bleed over is better than having zero bleed over, because let's face it, this game is not doing well generally.
Yes, I agree. No bleed over is better, but the adverse effects of having to have another game in order to bleed over means adverse effects like for the main game. Like, I'm not judging it from, we are having no PvP content put out for 2 years now, including maps and heroes. Like, yeah, take Echo, whatever.
Sure.
Like I'm not comparing it to that status quo. I'm comparing it to, we could have 12, 24 heroes a year, and it could be free to play, and we could all be exploring new characters every week,
100%.
trying to figure. Let's be honest. That would also suck from a PvP perspective for the league as well, from a competitive integrity standpoint. But I tell you what, that would make it a bigger esport than it is right now. And I like, once again, we're given more than I anticipated, actually. Like them saying they want to rework the base PvP game.
You find merit in that, right?
It's more than I expected there to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the development process is not going to I didn't think the initial development speed of what we got was nearly enough to compete in an industry-wide space with the Fortnites, with the League of Legends,
100%.
with the.
And that's why, in my perspective, and again, I don't mean to cut you off, it was always about bleed over. It was always about kind of keeping things separate and migrating people over and throwing Tracer at them and going, look, your favorite hero. I don't know.
But the thing is, what I don't understand is how you guys can believe in this when we can't even get people out of quick play to watch an Overwatch League match.
Again,
very obviously.
I hate to circle back to it. I agree. Like we've been really bad at building that bridge, but for right now, I don't think it's tough. I don't think there's no way back. Sure, I guess we could disagree, like from first principles on what should happen. And I guess that's just the discussion that we're having, is like at a core, you want this to be very esports driven. And I don't think, and John can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think either of us are disagreeing. It's just which path we want to take.
Okay, let me ask this way.
Okay, go ahead.
Which esports has succeeded by not being the primary focus of the developers that work on that game?
What is success?
Being a
tier 1 esport, I'm guessing.
Tier 1 esport, yeah.
I mean, wasn't there a lot of PvP or PvE work in StarCraft games? I mean, obviously it ended up going into PvP long term, but at least initially.
PvE work wasn't PvE work coming in later on while it was dying?
Much later. Yeah.
But
that was a death rattle, not right? Really a. Sorry.
I mean, it launched with PvE, but that one's tough because I feel like it's way more accidental. Like there was a lot of things. If you're talking StarCraft 2, there was a lot of things like kind of popping off at that time.
80% of esports accidental? Like, let's be real. Fortnite was not designed to be a BR game. It was designed to be it was a survival game. It was a cooperative survival game.
100%. I agree. And I remember being shocked that that game was successful as it was. But I think we're getting to a point with some very notable games, chat pointing out R6, I think League specifically. There are multiplayer driven games that are fundamentally competitive that I think will lead the way for future esports. So I kind of have to agree with Yiska in this front. Slowly, though. Slowly.
But also, and again, I still stand by it. It's not because it has to be that way.
Sure. Doesn't have to, but I think that
just naming empirical evidence.
Yeah. I think there is a trend to point.
And isn't Overwatch technically launching as a PvP only game and then launching a PvE wing, which, to your point, in admission, is successful in some esports?
Do you feel we are going to be the stepchild or the?
But I don't think it's bad, though. I don't know. I think I'm crazy.
I think that the replayability of PvE content for Overwatch that we've seen is not as high as you think it is. It'll be a PvP game first. PvE is fun.
No.
And then, Yep. Okay, so
disagree.
I guess how do we define PvP versus PvE game? There's going to be more people every month playing PvE than PvP?
Yes, vastly more.
No.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Probably by an order of 10.
Borderline ignorant, in my opinion, to say.
No. I think
by an order of magnitude. Yeah.
The amount of people through, again, if you want to just like, and this isn't even a fair argument, like look at the size and the scope of r/Overwatch and look at competitive Overwatch, look at esports, look at the game. More people play these games than they do these esports or play ranked. Whatever game it is, nobody plays ranked. Everybody just
plays
plays
under the
quick
fundamental
play.
assumption that people are going to go from quick play to then recess down into PvE content.
I think more people come in to play PvE content.
Yeah.
No way. I just wholeheartedly disagree.
How many people do you think? I mean, to reframe it to WoW. How many people are playing dungeons and how many people are playing ranked or even unranked?
That's a disingenuous argument.
Break it down.
So
what's
first and foremost, PvP was not the primary focus of the game when
Agreed.
World of Warcraft launched. Number
Fair.
one. Number two, the barrier to entry on WoW PvP significantly higher than PvE.
Yep.
Requires certain add-ons and sets of skills and everything else that is
generally
very different
I'm with you.
than that there. Number three, despite all that, it still had a wildly successful PvP career with Arena for a while.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah, because it was the biggest game in the world, yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I'm kind of getting at is I think there's an untapped and very fervent market that they're now accessing that has been screaming that they want like this game. And I think that's going to surprise a lot of people.
But also, even if I'm wrong about this, that doesn't matter because PvE is not taking away PvP fans and competitive Overwatch fans.
Again, that's where
the thing is,
I agree with you.
It's like saying like, hey, we don't want Overwatch League and PvP, so give us PvE. And then you're like, no, it's going to make our player base numbers look bad.
The thing is, here's where my trauma comes in, and I legitimately mean it in that word. I've been repeatedly on the side of being the stepchild of in a Blizzard game where the market has found out that the consumers value a specific point, and it's atrocious. Without you ever knowing it's coming. It will end careers, entire industries, from one day to another. The heat will be turned up. This is the pattern in every Blizzard title, by the way. Eventually, this thing will just switch off. This is the empirical evidence and the experiences that I've lived through, and very much now again, if you want to call it taste, be my guest. But that is my fear. That in 5 years' time, someone sits in a board meeting, goes, Overwatch PvE? 3 billion. Overwatch PvP, 200 million. And I'm sitting here with my career focused on I'll just give it to you right ahead. And my job is gone.
I mean, there's a lot of jobs gone, like players gone,
So-
coaches gone, staff gone.
I sympathize with that. Now, there's a few things. So, number one, all profit is good profit. All profit
Agreed.
is
Agreed.
good profit. 200 million, 50 million in the red versus 200 million, 50 million in the green are two very different products. And
Yes.
they mean very different things. If I have a product that I put in 1/10 the resources, make 1/10 of the money,
Yes.
and I don't
Agreed.
have meaningful information that says that if I take that 1/10 of resources and reapply it there and I can grow that revenue potential exponentially,
Yep.
then that stays or potentially even grows. Maybe it's
That's
like, wow,
why-
we're doing that there. So it's
That's why WoW Arena is still around. It's just atrocious. Because
It is just kind of
resources. Like the thing is,
empty.
yes, you're in the plus, but if this is giving you revenue of 10% of your investment and the other does 15, then yes, you're running, but you're not running well.
No,
And
I agree.
these games are too intertwined to ever be decoupled. We will forever, up on this point of the announcement of 2019 in BlizzCon, we will
Sure.
never get our own heroes that will not have to have a PvE side of a talent tree,
Agreed.
a lore side justification.
Yeah.
We will always be tied, and
Not as
in-
much though.
in
You have
depth-
to agree there.
what do you
Not
mean?
as much. I don't think a direct comparison to WoW can be made. I think that there will be reflection, but they won't be like mechanically tied to one another. One can be very separate.
Sure.
And I think that that's the argument that
But-
needs to be had, not necessarily just kind of blanket statement. Like, is the handling of WoW Arena good? No. Let's discuss why and break that down.
But
right?
the problem is just think of the development processes. And there's like this thing, it's called like Conway's Law or whatever.
Sure.
It's like the structure of a piece of software is outlined by the communication structure of a company, right?
Mm.
Something like that. Might
Sure.
also not be Conway's Law. Definitely double check me.
Right,
Don't double check
whatever.
me. But basically, if you regularly have front and back end developers doing something, that creates a different product than if they didn't, right? Very straightforward.
Sure.
Now, every communication of what PvP wants to do with the game needs to be going through the PvE sector. If you say we would like to have, we have a big problem with Pharah here. We definitely need some hit scan character that has these properties,
Sure.
which the other hit scans don't solve, and we cannot fix them towards that. Then you have to say, can you please build me a story, a PvE tree, and
There are barriers. Yes, I agree. But that's what I think they are. I think they're barriers. I don't think that there's. There's so many things I have to address to kind of set up this point. I agree that there are barriers to creating PvE and PvP content as Overwatch stands right now. Big agree. I don't think it's impossible, but I also agree that in the past, numerous developers have tried to do not something similar, but try to do a balance of both, and it fails majority of the time. Agreed there. However, I think we're glossing over the execution of those bridges built, if that makes sense, to kind of return to that metaphor. I'm open to giving some leeway or at least a benefit of the doubt and saying, let's see your try. Let's see this team try. Agreed. WoW Arena sucks. It is a shell of its former self, 100%. But I think the handling of that should be the argument and not necessarily saying, I see a pattern. It's wrong. Please, God, save me from this hell. Right? Like I'm against the broad sweeping stroke, and I want to get granular in exactly why. And I'm not saying right now, but I think that's the hill that we should die on. Not necessarily saying like the system sucks, but the execution of the system sucks. Does that make sense?
yeah.
That's
thing is-
my problem.
So the one thing I just want to add to that too is we have a lot of characters in Overwatch with next to zero lore. It's not like every
Yeah.
character has
Well, right
come out
now,
with the cinematic, has fully
Agreed.
written lore, and we don't know when that lore's been written, Joe. Like that's kind of my point. Is it's not like you need to
100%.
launch the character and then you can't launch the character until the lore is all the way fleshed out and you know every piece of content that they're going to be in and do. Because I know for the
Yeah.
fact that for some characters, I mean, it's just plain not.
No, agreed. There is a lack right now, but I wonder, to Yiska's point, if there's an expectation set with Overwatch 2 that everybody has a story, and if that creates a bigger barrier for developers to kind of.
I think people expect more, but again, that's a linear scale. That's not an on-off switch as far as how much more lore does it take. How much, what do we need for launch? What do we flesh out over time? Do we do Origins campaign stories where when we launch a new character, there's a 2 month long weekly campaign story that explains through the character's stuff? Or do we just sometimes launch a player like a Baptiste and go, yeah, he's this, and this, and
he's got a comic.
Here's a paragraph, and here's a comic that we wrote. Have fun. Or Zarya, I don't even think has a comic. She just shows up in.
I think she does.
Does
It was early, but
I think that's underappreciating. Like, to me, it feels like we're going from a Rubik's Cube, a regular one, and now we're saying we need another layer.
Yes, I
and
agree.
Another layer of complexity doesn't make it just like 1/4 more hard. It makes it infinitesimally harder
I
to
agree.
solve issues. And that's pretty much the same how I see this going.
I don't think people are asking that layer though. So imagine though, like a one layer Rubik's Cube, and then the 3 or whatever you call it. 3 layer is the current. So
yeah,
whatever. So a 1 layer Rubik's Cube added to a 3 layer Rubik's Cube is much more difficult to solve.
Right.
But solving the 1 layer Rubik's Cube separately is minimal time. Much easier. Much more simple. And it is possible to do them separately while trying to combine talent trees and to balance both simultaneously. Your PvE talents and your PvP talents are the same. Then they broke out and like, you know what? No, you have
execution.
You have separate stats. You have separate trees. You have separate things. And we've learned from that over the 13 years that WoW has been out.
Painfully and
slowly. That these need to be balanced differently. Halo is the same way. Guns do different damage and they hit very differently in PvE than they do in PvP. They do different things. They have attachments. They have upgrade trees.
The settings, the format of the game is different.
I can pick up a shield in a Halo thing, or think about like a Call of Duty, a Call of is it called? I always mix up, but Call of Duty Call of Duty, their campaigns, right? So think of the campaigns for Call of Duty.
There's different elements. Right?
There's different elements of what you're doing in those and there. And it's not like every gun fires the same, has the same attachments. They can be approached completely different. Yeah. They can be approached completely differently. I wholeheartedly, with my whole heart, believe it can. And there has to be, you have to find this right level of similarity so you don't play Zarya in campaign and find out that she's like playing soldier and competitive.
Right.
There has to be that there, but I think that bar is relative. I think it's much lower than you're alluding.
I think you think it's much more the TFT to League of Legends comparison, and I tend to think it's much more the old PvP to. So to explain the metaphor, Joe, because he's okay. So in TFT they take characters out of League of Legends. Then they adapt the skills towards the respective. They might as well be different games. We just call them the same thing. Sometimes we take like the same themes and it sort of works. But crucially, they have different development studios that are doing. Like there's not one head guy that's coordinating everything.
Yeah, they're completely different games.
And by Conway's law, it's not getting easier to communicate to 2 people if the head stays the same. And I tell you, the head will stay the same.
Agreed.
Team 4 has never given up any creative decision making. In the history of this game, they've been helicopter parenting even the esports side of things.
Yes. That's where I hope we're headed, to kind of return to the nest metaphor, is that if there is a bigger, better bird, that we can kind of figure out how to fly on our own. I hope not to develop a different game or to have our own development team or to completely rework the game as a whole, but to find out what works best for our audience and then be able to execute on that because the game has a bigger, better bird. And I think that's I think it's fine for us to thrive in the shadow of that than to kind of, again, have them continuously tinker around and try to figure this out. I think I want to have that strong base. And if that base is PvE, then so be it.
By the way, as I hear the music playing, I just want to go out real quick. They killed the wrong game mode. Control should have died. Thank you very much.
I love how you just sneak that in at the end.
I was gonna say, I mean, I wanted to go around one time and say closing thoughts on this because I feel like each of us need our closing thoughts. Yiska, do you want to go first or last?
I'm happy that so many people seemed very enthusiastic. I hope that my viewpoint of having lived through you're in the biggest esports in the world one day, and the next day the MLG is not even hosting their world finals because the developer has decided that StarCraft 2 is not their PvP title that they want to support.
Yep.
This is the experience that my judgment is coming from. It's definitely a very hurt and broken one because that unraveled my life to a large degree at that time. So definitely take that from that perspective. And that's why I got to be skeptical towards what I've seen at this.
I think it's very healthy to be skeptical. There's a lot of reasons to be skeptical. But yeah, I hate to say give Blizzard a chance, but I think we kind of have to. I think we need a little bit of optimism.
That's what I'm willing to. Like, yeah. That's fine.
I don't want to I don't want to sound unsympathetic because that f***ing sucks, and I don't want you to have to go through that. But you do know the volatility of esports,
especially
and what it's in, right? And like, I'm not saying like you knew what you signed up for. Like, I hope I'm not sounding like that big of a jackass because I don't mean to say it that way. I don't mean it in that way at all. But I'm in fast startup technology. I know the risks of taking less pay for 2 years to launch a product on a limited budget is going to do, but it's either something I love or something I believe in long term or something I believe that I'm meant to do. And we do that. I don't want you covering any other game for the rest of your life than Overwatch. I really don't.
We're lucky to have you.
But I would also be a little bit naive to believe that Overwatch is going to be a game that's around forever. Just like League of Legends.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, someday League of Legends is not going to be a thing.
Of course.
At least in its current iteration, as we
likely.
And so I think, at the end of the day, I personally choose to be optimistic in that if Blizzard does one thing, I think really well is it understands the systematic failures of other studios and are able to implement solutions for those in their games. And they're not perfect in that by any means, but I believe that they've done that in the past, and I believe that they can do that here. I believe that Overwatch is a powerful enough IP that it transcends PvE, PvP, and even the bounds of a computer screen to be something that's really magical and more enjoyable for more people. And I do believe that there is a way with the right person in charge to build a budding game ecosystem where each of them are feeding each other. I agree 98% of competitive players are going to spend less than 1% of their time in PvE. And at the same time, 98% of people who feel like they're PvE players are going to spend less than 1% of their time in PvP. And I think that that needle can be moved a bit, but that fundamental idea is going to stay the same. And I totally agree with that. But I don't believe the success of one needs to be at the detriment of the other.
Right. Yep. Agreed.
Your word in esports viewers, yes.
hopefully. Yeah. Ideally so. I think Agreed on a lot of things. I think a deeper episode than I think we intended, but
It's such a long. We're going up on 2 hours right now.
I thought it was a fantastic discussion. Hopefully the viewers can leave feedback and maybe we'll do more of these.
Be gentle.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Be gentle. Be gentle.
The upside is, I was negative Nancy today. When we next time talk about the changes,
You're going to be positive,
dude. I'm gonna go ham on the positivity.
And that again, the execution. There's still refinement there to be made. Hero Pools is back, guys. I don't know if you noticed, but we're getting bi-monthly Hero Pools. We'll talk about that Wednesday. But we can refine this again. You said it best. We're in the best season of Overwatch League we've ever seen. The format is the best it's ever been. So again, there's a little hope. There's a little bit of solace that we can kind of shelter ourselves in and say, look, we're doing it right. Finally, we're getting there. We can do better, but we're getting there. So again, to John's point, I think we can execute two different things and we can still have that Overwatch magic to bleed elsewhere and to be magical. I think that's well put. So again, it's all about execution. Let's hammer them when they do poorly and build them up when they do it well.
All right, chat. We love you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Wait, Yiska, you got to say you were first, right? You had your closing thoughts.
Yes.
Closing thoughts first. Okay.
I'm gonna go.
Cool. I want to make sure I didn't miss over. Be like, and no, nothing for Yiska. Big thanks for everyone who hung out today, and a big thank you to our brand, or not brand new, but our resubs, Enco, Pin to Paper, Ashador, Coppers, Lotion, Mr. B-Boy 6, Morai, OW, and Sickles. Thank you so much for supporting the show and meeting us back on Twitch. Again, we are going to be back on Twitch for the foreseeable future. Thanks to everybody who's joining and resubbing and supporting us in that. No new 5-star reviews, no new patrons as far as I can remember. I need to kind of go through, though, because my Gmail filter's been a little bit weird, so I need to figure that out. Big thank you to our patron producers, though. Refine Bean, Ferdino Pin, Battlecrab Lotion, Rex Zane, Audio Compass, Kasha67, Shara Picasso, Nathan Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fabled Steven, Roger B. Owen, Chris R34444, Orbjorn. I listen to this podcast whilst on the toilet and in the shower thinking of Yiska, Peace Camper, Anxiety Pokemon, Sir Girthalot, Bronzebot, Boohow, Evan, and Alex S. If you like the show and want to support, please subscribe at twitch.tv/kicktripod. Please become a Patreon at patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Follow us on Twitter at tactical_crouch. And we would love for you to join us for our anime night, which is going to be episodes 1 through 4 of Finding
The Promised Neverland.
The Promised Neverland. And then we'll meet in Discord, watch episode 5 together, and discuss it afterward.
Discuss it, vote, see if it lives, see if it dies. We'll figure it out, and then we'll figure out the next one.
We'll figure it out. Are we going to be doing that at noon? Normal
whatever
show
works
time?
best for you guys. Yeah, that's fine with me.
Tentatively noon Pacific time. Sure. Discord.me/Yiska out. You can find Joe at Volamel everywhere, including Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all that stuff. Yiska at Yiska out. Any specific shout outs you guys have? We're going really long here.
Just expect a lot of dope content coming out until the start of the Overwatch League season. I'm lining some up, boy.
I'm hammering this kid on Wednesday on Control.
That's an interesting one. I know we kind of glossed past that.
We need to dive into that one, but again, for Wednesday.
Just because you suck at the best game type doesn't mean you can vote to cut it from the game. That's going to be my stance on it. All right, chat, we're out of here. Thanks. We'll see you Wednesday for episode 163 of Tactical Crouch. Goodbye.